Hello everybody, it's me, DigMC, and welcome back to another episode of the DigCast. I know it's been a while, been busy with some IRL stuff and other videos and streaming and all that stuff, but we're back. Hopefully wasn't too long of a wait. With Bezopasan, or Bezospasm, I still don't know how to say it, joined with me. Hello Bezo.
Hello. You can say Bezospasm if you want. I do tend to spaz out on occasion.
It's not even that. I think ever since I just saw your name, I've just always in my head said that. I don't know why. But anyway,
usually the passing part isn't the confusion; it's the Bezo part.
Really? What do people usually say?
It's like Bezo, Bezo.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Bezo. But yeah, so this is gonna be hopefully part of like a kind of two interview sort of thing. So on this channel, I'm gonna be interviewing Bezo, and on Bezo's channel, he's gonna be interviewing me. Which should be quite interesting, how the turntables on each of us, and us giving our individual 2B2T lore. So moving on to the 2B2T lore, Bezo, you've been interviewing for like 4 or 5 years. What is one thing you've learned about 2B players since interviewing them?
Actually, there's one specific thing that I'll always kind of have a fear of going into an interview, and it's that they can't communicate. And I've had plenty of people, and I mean, I've even been guilty of it from the get-go, right? You know, with interviewing, it's kind of like a process of getting better at it with every single one you do. So for me, like, the people that would come on occasionally would make it so much more difficult. Um, Albeit, they're great people that come on, to tell their story. I'm really thankful for them coming on the show. But, like, for instance, like, Judge Holden, Sunwoo Khan, like if you go back and watch those interviews, like the awkward pauses and like the non-responses were like just so hard to work around in that moment when I had like little experience navigating.
Do you think you've got better at handling those, or do you just edit them out?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I noticed that in some recent interviews. I won't name some of those, but some recent interviews, it's like, now that I've kind of looked back and realized, oh man, like I could have said this here and segued here and then fixed it. That like, it's not as hard to navigate now as it was. But looking back, yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, I can relate to that when like editing a podcast, just like thinking, oh shit, I should have asked that one question. That would have been perfect. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like actual the 2B2T side of things, have you kind of made any like discoveries about how 2B2T players specifically like act that have maybe helped you like understand the player base a bit more, or does that come from just playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a large subset of 2B, especially some of the people that come on my show, that feel like they are like above everything because they're so known on the server, right? Like their ego just specifically in this community is so huge. That they just have so much like, God, what's the word? Like just so much like glory, and like they like respect themselves more than most people do. Like most other people have for them. So it's interesting in that regard, I would say.
How people's online personas just have a massive like self like value, I guess.
Yeah, and people realize that about themselves, and they know that going into it.
Do you think that makes them accentuate their online character?
I think it makes it really interesting. Because it's like, wow, these people have been so absorbed and like wrapped up in this community for so long that like they know who they are on this server inside and out. Like they are very aware of like their place in this community and what that means for them.
And when you interview these people, is there a different way you approach the questioning to get them talk more? Do you think that if you kind of play into their ego a bit, they'll speak maybe more, like reveal more things?
Oh, of course. That's actually something I wish I would have done more in the Tristan interview that I did a while back. It's kind of just inflate his ego a little bit more to get him talking. 'Cause that's another one of the kind of awkward ones.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna mention the Tristan interview later, but like, how was that? Because that was one of your first interviews, right? So that must have been somewhat hard to. Like, I'm assuming lots of people go to him being like, "Hey, bro, can you come on my podcast?" Like, how did you manage to score that so early on?
Yeah, well, back then, the first, I would say, 10 or so episodes of the show, a lot of the guests were brought to me by Jared. Jared was one of my big collaborators early on in the show. And so people like Clyde and Tristan and just like all of these big names, like right from the get-go, were kind of brought along by Jared saying, oh, you should go to this person and talk to this person. Here, I'll message them for you. And here's some questions you should ask them that are going to be really funny. Like, I know in the Tristan interview specifically towards the end, like it got really fucked up because we brought Jared.
You got him in the VC, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, we brought Jared into it, and like he was like hammering Tristan with all these like deep personal questions, and it was just really cool. There were like a lot of awkward silences, and like that's what a lot of people remember from that interview, right? Is Jared popping in and taking it to another level, elevating it a bit outside of the normal interview.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do your kind of views on people like players, like in terms of their in terms of players you look up to before going into an interview with them, like Tristan, because is massive, clout on the server. Does that kind of get sort of brought down after you finish your interview them, or does it in some cases like you respect them way more after hearing them out?
Well, I'll say in that regard, I don't think that I necessarily look up to anybody in the community, in this community specifically, because like
that was a strong way of putting it.
Yeah, they're all like versions of themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think in that regard, like when I initially started like talking to people like Tristan and Clyde for the first time, because I'd never spoken to them before those interviews, so speaking to them for the very first time was such it was very like daunting at first because of like everything they had done. But once you get them on that level, right, and you're asking them specific things, and like sometimes things that are not even like inflating their ego, like I said, it's just simple questions, you kind of realize, oh, they're just like me. They just decided to do this in this way, and it ended up making them known by everybody. And I think like you said, like you were mentioning in your question, like interviewing people that I actually did find like interesting, like people that I looked up to a lot, I guess you could say, like were Dr. Zombie and Judge Holden, who did like art for the community, like the community comic, and Dr. Zombie, who was like the OG 2B2T YouTuber. Like I will admit, I do kind of look up to those people in particular.
Was that specifically just from the fact that they made content, or was it the fact that you enjoyed the conversation so much and you thought they're cool people?
A little bit of mix of both, especially with Dr. Zombie, because I think looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but like kind of subconsciously, like he is a big inspiration for a lot of the content on 2B that I've made. Because when I was playing in 2014, like and 2015 as well, like you would see him in chat just typing like a normal player, but also making his videos, right? And at the time, like making content like he made on 2B wasn't impossible like it is now, because he could film bases and he could film like all these top secret locations and not have to worry about them getting like terrain exploited or something. Like he really showed like what it's like to be a 2B player and really cared about interacting with players. So
crazy that all these years on that he's still probably one of the best people to have done that.
Oh, for sure. And I mean it's unfortunate that he's left, but I think it's really kind of a testament to how much the server has changed that he feels like it isn't worth making that kind of content on anymore.
It's kind of symbolic, yeah.
He always did, yeah.
Yeah, would you say back then were his videos genuinely like recepted well by the community?
I mean, they weren't received badly. His videos back then, I mean, they weren't like super hits, like FitMC videos, right?
Yeah.
The videos that Dr. Zombie was making, like back then, he was the only one doing it. So I thought it was so cool that the Minecraft server that I was playing on had a YouTuber on it, even though he had like 50 to 100 views per video, and they were all 2D players. I thought it was so interesting to like see my name pop up in chat or something in one of his videos, and it's like, wow, like 2B's gonna be big one day. Like this is gonna blow up. Like I wish everybody knew about this server. And
did you think that back then that 2B was gonna blow up?
Oh yeah. There's not just with 2B, but like in other things in this community in the specific, like you just kind of have that sense of when something's about to be big or when something big's about to happen.
Yeah.
And
the reason.
When I started back then, right? It was like this feeling like this is so novel, the idea of this server, and it's got to be big at some point. And I didn't think Dr. Zombie specifically was going to be the one to do it, but I knew it was coming at some point. But
That's interesting to hear that from you, because like I've asked that question to a few old players on this podcast, and the answer always is no. We could have never expected to be like no one ever even like thought like or even mentioned it.
Yeah.
So hearing that,
I think I knew it would. Yeah, because I wanted it to. Like I wanted it to be big. So so I kind of pushed that onto my expectations for what it could be. When you're as young as I was joining 2B, you have a very big imagination compared to some of the old timers who joined when they were like in college or whatever.
How old were you when you first joined, if I can ask?
I was like 14.
Oh, same as me. Okay. Yeah. Do you looking back? I mean, we'll go into this a bit deeper later. But looking back, do you wish you could have found the server a bit later or earlier, or are you happy when you joined?
I mean, in an ideal situation, I would have wished to find 2B2T at this point in my life. But like back then, like I wish I was this old in 2014 finding the server. But
what about that 2014 server like is so attractive compared to
just
today?
the community, like, and I think anybody will tell you that, like, the people that were there, it's just such a tight-knit community at the time, and everybody knew each other even if they didn't like each other. Like everybody knew when a troll was a troll, and everything that was done was like huge compared to now. Because I mean, think about projects now, right? Like Team No Trees, and like that's probably a bad example, but like just these little shitter projects that come along that like make a little drop in the bucket but don't really do anything. Like Sato 86 and these Valkyrians were going to spawn and just killing people, and that was like a huge deal. And like if you go to spawn now and like kill some like new players with swords, like that's nothing. So that's what was definitely interesting about it then, is that things that were small now were definitely larger than life in 2014.
Yeah, that is quite cool. I mean, going back to your interviews now, would you say that because obviously you've been playing 2B for fucking 9-8 years now, have your interviews helped you become a more like successful player?
I think it's definitely something that I'm known for since I started. And it's definitely something that I like to keep going as kind of like a part of my online persona.
Did you originally start it to like for clout or whatever, or were you like?
Oh, I mean,
you thought you were onto something.
I started it because I thought it would be really cool to have a talk show. When I started it, it was like 2018, I think. I want to say that's the year, 2018. And I was friends with this guy on 9B9T. His name was Paradigm Plague. And he was this really cool guy that I based with whenever Veteran Q disappeared, and I just like stopped playing 2B. And I had come back to the server because of something that Jared had said, like wanting me to come back and base with him on the server. And I went back to Shenandoah and like toured the base a little bit. I was kind of LARPing around, like, and started making content. And they were like shitty little, oh my god, you're probably gonna hear my cat meowing in the background.
That's alright, don't worry about it.
But yeah, I was making shitty little videos at Shenandoah, like running around saying like, oh, I'm looking for a bounty hunter to hire to kill Sato 86, and like just stupid shit like that. And I was like, wow, this is really funny. Like, I want to keep doing this. And Paradigm was like, yo, you should just start like in like a talk show. You should interview players, and like talk to all these people that you know, that you've met. And like, I love that idea. So I started with Jared, of course, because he was like the first person that came to mind. And from there, it just went off.
Yeah, that's insane that you've been doing it for 5. I mean, it's crazy that 2018 was 5 years ago now. Looking back, that's kind of wild.
It's insane.
You touched on this a little bit earlier about the, I think you mentioned like the ego and the like social awkwardness of people. But like, what about a player like creates a good interview versus a bad one?
I think there's a lot of factors. If someone comes into an interview with bad intentions, like I interviewed Alpha Computer a while back, and you might notice that interview's not on my channel anymore, and that's simply for the fact that he just lied the entire time in his interview. He came on just to troll, and just
he did that to Super as well on the podcast, I think.
Yeah, he dropped a bunch of bullshit in the interview. I mean, he worked with Jack to do that, right? Like Jack was like, "Yo, I'll help you come up with some bullshit questions," and I mean, in hindsight, it's funny. Like, I kind of wanted to keep it up just because it's alpha, and it's kind of a piece of history. But at the same time, I don't want to like promote misinformation in the community like a lot of other content creators do.
Yeah. What was the kind
So
of shit he was saying? I remember he larped a lot about like Jesus and stuff.
yeah, that's really like kind of the gist of it. Is he just
Right.
kind of like
Okay.
made up outrageous shit that at the time, of course, I was younger. I didn't really realize that that wasn't true because I didn't really know him that well. But in hindsight, it's like, wow, I look like an idiot. I should definitely like delete this. And I think he dropped like a bunch of like really cancelable words as well. So I just got rid of that interview altogether. So that's one thing, misinformation. Another thing though, like I said earlier, is just the lack of substance, right? Like if somebody comes on and they don't know really what they're going to say before they come on, which can be understandable sometimes, but they just don't like have the answers to the questions. They're giving me like 5-second answers and then they just stop talking, and there's no like lead in, there's no like, oh, you're about to, this is it, so it just stops and there's a long pause. Like it's that kind of shit that really like ruins an interview. So it's mostly those two factors.
Would you say there's a correlation between the amount someone has to talk to, or the amount they talk in a 2v2t interview compared to how long they've been playing the server? Or does it kind of depend on the person?
It depends on how much they like themselves. It depends on how much they enjoy their own escapades. Because I think there's people that have done a lot that just don't really like to talk about themselves or to be like as they don't like to brag as much about what they do. And there's some people that come on that haven't done jack shit, that just want to talk all day about this little shitter rinky-dink base that they went to in like 2015, 2016, that nobody really cares about. And I mean, one way or the other, it's fine. I'm able to kind of drag answers out of people now, right? And with recent interviews. But back then, that sucked. Yeah.
When you say now you can drag people into answers, like, is that just you as an interviewer, you've kind of got more skilled at asking the right questions?
Oh yeah, and like back then I didn't really know what to ask. I was going to Jared for a lot of my questions, and he was giving me these big lists of like, oh yeah, people are going to want to hear you ask this, and his own like agenda was kind of implanted in that as well, with some of the stuff. Like he wanted to like embarrass some of the people that came on. He saw it as like a trolling opportunity, because it wasn't attached to him directly. So a lot of my questions came from him initially, and then I noticed later on I got a lot better at realizing what people would want to know, and also doing a lot of research beforehand. And with time comes a lot of knowledge about certain people, and especially the people that you reach out to. Of course, to reach out to them, you have to like know about them beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. To be a 2B interviewer, you need to be very well grained into the 2B culture, because it's just the subconscious like characters you build off certain people, like the images and like the things they do in your own head really help like you curate your questions, rather than just like looking at a wiki page for a player or looking at their YouTube channel or something. So yeah, I think experience.
Oh yeah, the wiki does jack shit for my interviews. You can quote me on that. Like I occasionally, like with bigger players, I'll go look at it like briefly. But the things that help me the most with research is going to be like Reddit posts, Imgur posts, like obscure stuff like that. Sometimes even James Russell's blog is even a better resource for that kind of stuff. So,
what was your? You don't need to name any names, but you can kind of just describe it. What would you say has been your worst interview?
Oh wow.
Worst other than the Alpha Computer one.
I mean, do you mean worst interview and like it just went like really badly, like there was just like not a lot said, or just worst interview as in like, wow, I didn't really like this guest and this was just a bad vibe?
Bad vibe, yeah.
Ooh, okay. I would have to say probably Sato86. And he's
really
not around.
Interesting.
He's not around to really give a shit, so I don't care. But,
so what made that? I don't think I must have watched it back in the day, but I haven't watched it recently. So can you kind of just
there was
give me
a lot.
recap?
There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of tension between me and Sato86. He was like my original block game nemesis, because he basically took my entire group from me back in 2014. Like Shenandoah, like all my people from that group, he kind of came in and just took the members that he wanted. and left everybody else aside that was either like kind of inactive or new. And yeah, and I like swore vengeance to him basically, and like this larpy like in-game message, like that's where the KOS Assassins comes from. It's me like swearing vengeance on Sato 86. And so I was still, at the time that I interviewed him, kind of hanging on to some of that resentment, and like really wanting to use this as an opportunity to come for him, and like vent some of my frustrations. And I think ultimately, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have used it like that, but like it definitely brought the vibe down a little bit. I mean, and he also kind of felt the same way towards me, so it was just not, it was not on good terms, but it definitely was a good interview. I feel like we got a lot of discussion out of it. So
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, talking about your so you founded and ran the group Shenandoah back in 2014, right?
yes, that's correct. I founded Shenandoah, and a lot of people don't know that, but I was, yeah, one of the pioneers here. I would say that Jesse and EXO, they kind of came along a little bit after, and things started to sprout up from there. So it's got a unique flair to it that not a lot of bases nowadays have because of the limited block resources at the time.
Was it simply that one base you guys built, or did you move on to build like multiple bases?
So the thing about Shenandoah that a lot of people don't know is that there are a lot of mini bases that surrounded it. There was Avalon, which was like this underwater type area, which we kind of went back to recently, to build a clout club at. It's like underwater, like Atlantis type area. And then there's also like a little, like if you follow the tracks on the archive, you'll find it. It goes like up past the barn, and like on the end of the tracks, there's like this small little town on a chunk border, like a little village, and it's got the coolest like layout, because it's got like the chunk border but with like patios coming off of it, and it looks really sick. And then the cobblestone walls too, you'll notice the way they're like attached, like when the server updates, they're never going to be attachable like that again. So it's weird stuff like that that's like, and I think even now they're kind of like in a weird position where they're like, the way they're attached isn't regular, like a regular attachment, and if you mess up one, it like domino affects all the others.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's one more too that was Henry's base, and it was farther out than the underwater base, on the same railroad. It took forever to get there, and it was still intact recently when we did Clout Club. It was still intact. It was this huge castle that people had been to, like a lot of people had gone to it. So yeah, there were a lot of little bases around Shenandoah, and then after Shenandoah got griefed, we went to Sleepy's Hollows and rebuilt that before Sato came through and took all the people we wanted.
Okay, so was Shenandoah simply just a building group, or did it kind of was it a part of what like factions there was back then, in terms of, you know, the whole faction scene on TV?
You could say it was a faction, but like we didn't really do anything that typically nowadays you could say factions would do. Like
I mean, before the time, obviously.
Yeah, for the time, I think a lot of these groups were just kind of like, I mean, they were just flags. They were just like symbols that you lived under, right? Like this was just like a little community. It was like a little village that didn't really like target anybody, but like we all just kind of came together to build like a nice little humble community. Like we had a little bank, and we had a little market, and like all this, like a hotel. We had a hotel here, like
all the SMP like, stuff.
Yeah, like a cute little SMP basically. That was kind of the charm of it.
Yeah, groups like that really don't take off nowadays, obviously, because of the queue. It's just like, you might as well do that on the survival server, right? Yeah, that's why everything now is so extreme.
People don't want to devote time to it because it's like something that doesn't get them a fit video, right? Like people want to do stuff that affects the entire server, so it's like, oh wow, we did something crazy on 2B2T. FitMC is going to really want to make a video about us now. So yeah.
Have you seen that kind of? I know I've spoken about this on quite a few of my podcasts, but have you kind of seen that shift in the community evolve over time, from people kind of not really giving a shit to a large amount of what goes on the server is dictated by the need to get clout and the need to be in a fit video?
Oh, absolutely. It's
was there kind of a turning point for that?
Yeah, and a painful one at that. And one that like while we saw at least I saw the server blowing up as like an inevitability. when it happened, I didn't expect it to go in that direction specifically. Whereas when Q hit, dude, that was the biggest sign that like, oh shit, like this server is not going to be ours anymore.
Yeah.
Because like that queue existed, but not for long. And when it disappeared, a lot of people left. Like I went to 9B after that. And when I came back, like the entire like culture of the server had already kind of changed in that time. So I would say between like 2014 and 2018, I wasn't really there, but like the shift was a lot more apparent when I came back. Like 2014, simple communities, occasional incursion at spawn, like occasional backdoor and exploit or whatever. That, I mean, it made 2B fun. Server was dying, but it was fun. But
were you a part of the Russia war? Oh, sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's in 2018. Like when I came back, it was just, you know, everybody knew about the server. Like it was basically a faction server. PvP had changed. Like it was just completely different. But yeah, and no, I wasn't involved in the Russia war at all.
Would you say that difference is necessarily a bad thing? Like which 2B2T do you enjoy more?
You know, I definitely had that nostalgia for the past, right? And it would be kind of cool to hop in a time machine and re-experience that kind of stuff, because it's my childhood, right? Like that was my childhood on 2B2T. Was like that was my experience on this server. But I think now it's changed in a way that's not necessarily bad, just different. And it's kind of matured a lot. Well, I don't want to say matured, but like grown beside me. You know, it's changed with me.
Yeah, I'd make the comparison that a lot of old players, you know, when the change happened, have all kind of shied away from the server now, being like, oh, it's not the same as it used to, blah blah blah. But you seem to have embraced it in kind of full swing. You know, you're all in on the faction side of shit.
Yeah, it's something that like it's grown with me, so it requires like a lot more intelligence to get things done than it did back then. Like you didn't have to like be this huge faction leader or inside a bunch of people, agree for a bunch of bases, or know how to crystal PvP back then. Like, but you do now. Like you need a lot of these different skills now to actually do stuff on the server. So, and stash hunting too. Like just all these little intricate like skills that you need, like all these little skill sets, and it's definitely something I couldn't have done back then at all.
Yeah. Would you think if the server never changed, you'd still be playing 2B2T?
Oh,
as your
probably,
adult self? Really?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that I would be playing, probably not as often as I do now, but I definitely would be stopping by, kind of like how Henry does, where he kind of just pops in occasionally. I would probably be doing that and keeping up with the community. I think COVID though was definitely something that locked me in on the server for the long run.
Forced you to play, yeah.
Oh yeah. I was done until COVID hit.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. So you quit in 2015. Oh shit, got kicked. You quit in 2015, came back in 2018, and then you quit again in 2019.
Yeah, so I left whenever Russia came around 2016 and to 9B90, and then came back in 2018, and then played for like a little bit, and then 2019 was kind of slow, and then like I barely ever touched the server in 2019, and then when 2020 hit, yeah, that was like the full send back into the server, because I mean there was nothing to do but play 2B2T.
So. Yep. Remember it vividly. Was that coming back in 2020? Was that what like when the whole transition from Drenderpickles to Bezopasan happened, and kind of what sort of caused that change in name?
No, actually, the transition to Bezo happened in 2018 when I came back from 9B90. On 9B90, I was Bezo. That was kind of when I wanted to swap identities from when I went to 2B to 9B. So I became Bezo on 9B. And when I came back to 2B, I was still Bezo. So nobody really knew who I was, because I thought I had to like clear my name after the whole Sato 86 big player incident to kind of like cover up that cringy history.
Right.
So yeah, I mean I came back with Bezopasan on 2B in 2018.
So you decided to switch from 9B from Drenderpickles to Bezo on 9B9T because you also not because of the symbolism behind it, but because you wanted people like not to recognize you on 9B and a fresh start, I guess.
Yeah, like I didn't want the negative connotations from 2B to follow me to a different server, and I wanted a fresh start. Albeit, I mean, when I went to 9B, I still kind of like hung on to stuff from 2B. Like I called the first group to ever exist on 9B is called the Legion of Shenandoah. I don't actually not.
Nice.
I don't know if we ever called it of Shenandoah, but it's like the Legion, and we have the same flag, and it's like pretty much the same thing.
Right, that's cool.
So like I carried that over to 9B, and yeah, and Dr. Drenderpickles too, of course, with the show name. Like it was kind of an homage to that last name. So
yeah.
Because of the clout that came with it.
Yeah, what made you come back to 2B because surely you were happy on 9B doing a thing without Q? Like, what about 2BCT made you gravitate back towards it?
Well, on 9B, I mean, God, I was involved in a lot of exploits and stuff like that, and it was very exciting until things became not so exciting. The owner kind of separated himself from me because I was kind of a bad. I was bad optics, right? I was misusing the stuff he had hacked in for us, and I was basing at this like shitty little 9B desert base with iTavix, and he was like trying to get me to play 2B with him more. Like he gave me some stuff on there, and eventually I started talking to Jared. Holy shit, my cat's fucking knocking down shit. I was talking to Jared on 2B in the little minimal window that I was on the server. So yeah, and then through him, like he kind of recruited me into Huggy Town, which was like at the time this small little group of Jared followers. It was like Blake, Boo Boy, Halt Account, all these people, and they were all like going against Imperium. They were all sending like pizzas to Fee's house and like all this shit. I never got involved in that directly, but I was definitely like sitting with my popcorn and watching it all go down.
Yeah.
and that seeing all that happen at the time was like, whoa, like I've never seen anything like this on the internet before. Like 2B has changed so much. Like I've got to get back into this and get into the drama and like see what's going on.
The drama attracted you. Okay.
It did, like a magnetic pull, and yeah, from then on I was back in the server, back on the game, ready to go. Yeah.
So if you could interview anyone on 2B, past or present, who would it be?
I could interview anybody past or present. It would probably be Pyrobite. Probably Pyrobite.
Interesting. Why?
He's gone. You know, he's completely. Even when I started doing interviews, he was just gone from the community. And when I started on 2B, I didn't actually start in this community on 2B. I started on 3B3T, which at the time was hosted by Tristan and Pyrobite. And it was a very small server. They were rarely ever on it. But I think it would be so interesting to just pester Pyrobite about 3B3T and all of that kind of stuff, and all the stuff he was involved in, like backdoor wise. I feel like he's a reservoir of knowledge that maybe a lot of them aren't willing to share.
Because we've all heard the POVs from Tristan and all that, but like he was there as well.
Yeah. Oh, and I didn't even think about this. Yeah, Pop Bob, probably Pop Bob too.
What about Pop Bob? Would you find interesting to talk about?
It's fucking Pop Bob, like
yeah,
like. That in and of itself is like, wow, like you got
100K views right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, this the views aspect to it that I definitely think about now, but like also like again like a reservoir of knowledge. Like this person has been through like so much on the server. They're like the Ronald McDonald of 2B, and what comes with that? Like what kind of emotions and mental obstacles come with being like the mascot of a huge community like this that you never expected.
He really is one of the mascots.
Yeah.
Do you think Pop Bob's trans?
Sure. I mean,
yeah, you're buying it.
I don't really care enough to question it. If you're gonna say
fair enough.
I'll go with it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Like
I believe it ever since Jared kind of confirmed it on his interview. But yeah, I think it's all a funny thing. Okay, so I asked you earlier who was your worst interview. Who was your best interview?
Best interview? It's got to be Momana. The most recent one with Momana.
Really? How come?
If we're talking about like good vibes, right, over like substance, she is just so much fun to talk to because we've known each other for so long. So our conversation was just, it flowed so naturally and it was so positive. And speaking to her just about her own life experiences and how it contributes to her time on 2B and her unique perspective being who she is, like I found all of that really, really interesting, and I think it made up for maybe not doing as much on 2B, but like still, honestly, she kind of has, like, in hindsight, like she has done a lot of stuff, but majority of the good substance comes from her experiences and her perspective.
Yeah, I think they're definitely my favorite interviews to record, when you talk more about how kind of 2B and your personal life sort of interlink, and the stories which come from that, rather than just, oh, I did this event, like whatever. That's interesting though. I'll have to give that a watch, because I don't think I did back when you uploaded it. But yeah, okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay, I think that's kind of enough for the interviewing side of things, because obviously that's only half of what you're known for on Two Builders, Two Tools. So I guess before we start talking about 5C, when you came back during quarantine, what did you kind of start with?
So when I came back during
Imperium stuff.
Yeah, when I came back during quarantine, I kind of was friends with some Jared fanboys for a while. His orbiters per se, and I learned how to PvP through them. But it was a huge mistake. I mean, these guys were turning on each other all the time, and of course they ended up turning on me. I had brought back the KOS Assassins, which was like the meme that I trolled Sato with back in 2014. I brought it back as like an actual group, and we were like PvPing at spawn and shit, and just kind of shitting around. Like we, and you won't hear this anywhere else, but we were technically responsible for the Fit Guardsman initiation in Crystal thing, like blowing up all those same people at the same time. We had coordinated that with Imperium, and it was one of our people, Tomad, that went and did it, but Uncle got credit for it in the Fit video. So we were actually responsible for that event specifically. But I mean, outside of that, like we ended up disbanding because we had a huge inciting scandal that happened in the group, and it just kind of shook everybody up, especially me. I mean, I ended up getting doxxed as a result of it, because he leaked my information to get a role in Imperium.
So who's he? Can you like elaborate on that whole situation?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Because of the circumstances around it. I don't want to bring any more negative attention than I'm probably already doing. But okay. it was a bad situation. It was a bad situation for everybody involved, and everyone's kind of.
Did that teach you anything?
Yeah, it taught me not to trust shitters.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just not a fan of it. Here, I'm going to take a pause for a sec. I think my cat just took a shit. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
All right, sorry about that. Our cats keep fucking, so I have to keep them separated. And
awesome, no worries.
Like a fat, stinky shit on my floor, and I could smell it.
Delicious.
Not a great thing. All right, where were we?
Okay, so you were talking about, I asked you about what you did when you first came back in 2020, and you were talking about how the KOS Assassins, when they disbanded.
Right. So after the big inciting and all of that, I kind of had to take a step back and be like, wow, like now that, the iron sights are on me, like, is this something that I want to keep doing, because this has changed so much from when I initially started, from being this kind of this wholesome, like, anarchy community to being like, oh shit, like this is all your, or not all your personal information, but like a decent chunk enough to like, mess with you if they really wanted to, and like, do you want to keep going with this? Like, you're actively getting harassed. Like, is this something you want to keep doing? And I waited maybe about a month or two, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'm not gonna let this. In hindsight, it wasn't really that bad. So I was like, fuck it. I'm not gonna let these people like troll me with it. I'm gonna come back and do my own thing. And if people have an issue, like, fuck it. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen, right? So I ended up coming back and joining II for like a really small stint, like maybe like less than like 2 weeks, just because it didn't really appeal to me. Kind of like they were really just kind of recruiting people to place water and break water and do stupid shit like that. And that's where I kind of met Baki a little bit. But I also, through II, started talking to Jake the Snake again. I'd known him a little bit, but I kind of got in conversations with him again, and I was like, you know what? Like, you're a funny, like, lol cow type guy, and let's do something funny, like collaborate on something funny together. So we came together and made this base called the Bat Cave, and through that base, through Jake and his Discord, I met Smeek, and Smeek is like literally my best friend on Anarchy through everything, and I've met Smeek several times IRL because we live quite close to each other. So she became kind of like my sole confidant on 2B that I knew I could completely trust. Which was really hard at first to fall into that with somebody, especially after getting betrayed so massively, to really put my trust in somebody from this community again. But yeah, I mean, she proved that, like, you know, even in the face of like massive shitters, like there are really genuine souls in this community that really are looking to make solid friendships and meaningful friendships.
100%, yeah.
And yeah, from there, after all of that, I mean, everyone kind of became a little bit inactive. And one day in pre-June, I think Orson was like, "Hey, does anybody want to grief some bases with us?" And me and Orson were already kind of rocky because I had griefed a guardsman base or whatever. And I was like trolling Herm and all them. But I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, like I'll grief some bases with you guys." And 5C from there.
So you were one of the founders then?
No. Yeah, the original founders of 5C, I believe, were Orson Sakuya and Pepsi Boy, and maybe, I don't know if Herm was involved in that initial startup, but I think it was just those three. And they all griefed that beard blur thing together, and they had done a little bit before that, and before I had stepped into it. But when I had stepped into it, it was like right at the beginning of Copenhagen, like right when all of that was starting up. So the good part, what they're known for.
Yeah, did you participate much with the whole private server griefing stuff, or were you more always on the kind of drums? Like,
absolutely. Okay. That was huge at the time. Like when we started using Copenhagen, we were griefing servers like 24/7, you know, and it was kind of crazy at first. It was we were talking to all these random people, and people had never really at the time seen anything on that massive of a scale in terms of like going around griefing servers like that. So people were like just shocked that this was possible. In the game, and we're coming in there just so angry, so mad, just coping to the absolute extreme. Is the best way to describe it, because they just were. It was unfathomable to them that they could even go through something this extreme.
Yeah, like a common reaction, I'm sure, was like, "Oh, you guys have hacked my like Wi-Fi router."
Yeah,
or something.
They didn't even know how we did it, right? So they were coming to all these crazy conclusions about these like grandiose hacking schemes, when really all it was is like, oh, we just typed some random numbers in and got your IP, like easy, like your server IP. So yeah, crazy
That's
stuff.
funny. Okay, so how was kind of 5C's? Was 5C always the private server griefing and then the 2B griefing mixed to one, or was it kind of more the private server griefing, and then when that sort of started to dry up a bit after like the fit video or whatever, you moved to more of the faction drama?
I think that as stuff came along, it kind of got as absorbed into our lore per se, whereas like, you know, we were private server griefing for a while, and then here comes this opportunity to inside this collaborative YouTuber social experiment where like everyone's a different race and you have to
Sorry, what's that?
Oh yeah. We did. I have a lot of fixings for a video on this, but there's this races experiment. Like I think it was this guy. You might know this video, Dig. It was like I started a race war in Minecraft, and it was like 4 different races, and they're on separate islands, and it's like a week or 2 week long experiment where like for like an hour every day the server's up and you have to do stuff, and if you die you're just dead. And there's like hidden like Easter eggs around the map, and it's kind of like seeing like, oh, what's gonna happen. It's like a social experiment, whatever. So we saw the first video and we were like, man, it'd be so cool if we got into this. And an opportunity came along where somebody that was like higher ranking that literally owned the Discord server itself for the project, like fucking came along and like let us in. You know, he was like, hey, I know you guys from this fit video, do you guys want to be in this experiment? Not really knowing like the full extent of what we were capable of, but he was like, yeah, you guys seem like big names, you guys should hop in on this, you guys have YouTube channels. We're like, yeah, sure. And then we get in contact with some other higher ups who do know us kind of well for what we do, and they're like, "Oh, this is funny. Like, we're gonna help you out on the inside." And from there, like, we're getting all these alts in, like, we're hacking, we're using the like bow hack and stuff like that to like auto kill people like with one arrow. Like, we were trolling really hard. Pepsi Boy specifically, he had a big run on there where he made a module specifically for the server where he could auto place lava buckets on people. Just without having to like turn around, it was like an auto module just for lava buckets, like something you would never imagine using on any other server for PvP, like any anarchy server. But he made it specifically for this one because it actually came in handy, and it was hugely useful. And I think he had auto water as well for himself, like if he got lavaed, and he survived like a really long time. He became like this big legend on the server and like killed a lot of people.
So what did you guys play as like a specific race then?
Yeah, well, we kind of split up. We diversified our resources, right, to different races, so we incited each one.
Oh, okay.
And Jack the Ripper, he was involved in it too. He made like this big underground cave system, like a maze, right, that you had to shift in because it had slabs. So you had to shift in the maze. You had to go slow so we could see people coming, and set up traps, like booby traps, all over the maze. So that was really sick. And it was like little stuff like that would come along and would like be like an arc for us, occasionally. And then stuff like you said on 2B, came along like with Joey and the Masons, and it became little arcs for us. It's like, oh, like we know this person and they have this, and we can get this person in that, and eventually it all snowballs into, oh, I'm making a video where we grief 5 of your bases on the same day. Like it's stuff like that where it culminates in this wonderful trophy that we could take home with us at the end. And yeah, so it's stuff like that has kind of comprised our group over the years.
A lot of groups that kind of start off by being featured in a fit video sort of fizzle out after that video comes about in like a couple of weeks. A good example of that's like the crafting table cult or whatever, Team Notaries, that kind of thing. So what kind of made 5C successful sort of in the long term? What did you guys kind of do differently that you think allowed you to keep going and to still be active to this day?
I think a lot of the things that kept us relevant in the public eye and active, like that was especially the server griefing, having that going on in the background, where we had people coming into our public server like mad as hell and like raising hell, demanding we do something and demanding that like we give them answers. Like that kept a lot of the activity going, because people, that's something they can consistently do even when we're not doing something. They can just literally get on Copenheimer and go grief a server, or like a Twitch streamer now, and like get satisfaction from doing that, like instant gratification.
Yeah,
it's not something that you have to like sit and plan and piece together and like a big trolling or inciting operation.
It's like the TikTok of griefing.
Yeah, it's like for those with attention deficit disorders. And so we had that in the back burner, right? And then we also had these long form projects where it's like, okay, like this maybe isn't doing much now, but like, oh, I just got this and that's really funny, and oh, I just got this. And then eventually like you get to a point like with fucking SkyMasons where it's like, oh shit, like we just got this after so long, after all these little wins, like we get this huge one, and it's like, wow, this was all really worth it, and this makes me want to stick around and keep doing stuff so that we get another thing like this in the future.
What's the kind of state of I think Orson talked about this a little bit, but what's kind of the state of Copenheimer nowadays? Like, how advanced is that?
So I mean, Copenheimer nowadays, compared to when it started, it definitely didn't have as many servers in the repository, like stored up. It has definitely exceeded our like expectations now. I can't speak much from a technical side because I don't do a lot of the developing for it. I just kind of mooch off of it. But from what I know, it's amassed an insane archive of servers. You can pretty much find anybody. And on top of that, now we have the Twitch griefing, which I don't know if anyone watching has seen 5C Public Access. It's the video series that I've been editing for the 5C YouTube channel, where we kind of clip together these like streamer griefs that we do, these streamer trolls, and put their reactions on there. So that the Twitch griefing is actually pretty recent, and it's insane to me that that's even possible, right? That you can link a Twitch stream to a server without any extra steps in between. It just pops up on a feed, right? And
Yeah.
and we can just go from one to the other and check if it's,
Oh wait, so the bot monitors for Twitch streams and then finds
Yeah.
correlating. So, oh my Jesus. Okay.
I think it's actually attached to Twitch's AI, like Twitch's API. I think that's what it's attached to. And it literally just pulls streams. It's crazy. But I think the actual statistics for Cope in general, I think it's like over 1 million servers now and 25 million players that have been tracked.
So you haven't found out, since all this publicity about, you know, this kind of, I guess you could call it a bug which exists, you haven't really seen a decline? You know, people aren't more aware, people aren't turning whitelists on more?
I mean, it's hard to really notice that, right? Because even when we started, I mean, whitelists were fairly common, but statistically, I wouldn't really know. I mean, it's probably about the same if I had to guess.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so back to the whole 2B side of things. Would you say SkyMasons was your kind of the pinnacle of what 5C's done on 2B so far?
For now.
Okay, so can you go into the whole griefing of SkyMasons? How did I know you guys have like an anonymous insider and all that, which I'm fairly sure you guys haven't like revealed yet. But like, what was kind of the process of getting that base, and once you had it, you know, how did you organize the grief? You know, how was the aftermath? All that kind of juicy stuff.
First of all, I'd like to say publicly, I'd like to reveal this for the first time on your podcast, that the insider of SkyMasons is Joey Coconut. I don't know if you guys knew
be
this,
serious, be serious.
That is a fact, yeah. But yeah. Outside of, you know, the leaker, the process was crazy to get this, and it came.
I mean, talk about some of the things you tried in the run, because you've been trying to get this for months.
Oh yeah, I mean, we reached out to specific members, and you know, that whole rigmarole, and it obviously didn't help the Masons that huge scandal had kind of popped up at the same time. So that was kind of like a thing where, oh, like, you support this, like you by basing at this base, by endorsing this base, you're supporting this. And we didn't like seek out to use that as any sort of leverage, but it just kind of happened to be that, like, oh, like, this is not good. Like, you should want to fuck them over because of this. Like, you should want
sounds like you did use that as some sort of leverage.
I mean, it happened, so, you know, like,
yeah.
It happened, you know, and it is what it is, and it's even more of a reason that people should have leaked. You know, it should have contributed to that, and it did. That was kind of the ending of the base for them, because the person that did leak it to us, they had a moral dilemma with when it happened on the meetup, and that it even occurred in the first place. And so we used, you know, what we got from that to go and check it out on the test server, right? So we got cords from the leaker, and we went on the test server at the time that was up to check if Sky was there, because obviously we didn't want to go on the main server and risk somebody seeing us and us having to really rush and not having time to prepare. So I personally went on the test server, flew out to Sky on the test server, and when it came into render, it was like, whoa, like, this is it. Like, now we have to, like, there's no more need to go through all these escapades to get the cords. We just have it now, and now we have to plan for it. And so I think within the next day, we were like gathering up people for this secret grief, and I unfortunately had a really big shift at work, like a really crazy shift that I had to work that night, and I was like, damn, like, I really need to get out of this. And luckily, someone was able to pick up my shift, and I was like, "Fuck yes! Like, this is perfect," and was able to participate, and literally like sped home that night, because I was working that morning as well. Sped home that night, and like we got everything into position. We had everybody at this meetup point, and then it was like, let's go. So everybody was flying together, like, synced to the base. We all get to the portal. We all go in. Negative entropy's there, organizing the stash. Literally couldn't be any more perfect. And then we all pop out with TNT. All have our own POVs. Everybody's recording. And yeah, the base is pretty much finito. We gave the test server cords to Oneb, and I think him and Falls Green griefed it on the test server. And yeah, the aftermath was crazy. Like, people were raging because of this.
It really stirred up the Spawn, mate. Especially, you know, due to the whole drama that had been going on, like the whole IHOP thing. Like
It,
it
it
really.
already had a lot of pressure on them. That actual, serious trauma had already had a lot of pressure on them to make a statement because of that, and to address it, and they weren't. They were just kind of biding their time because they knew, like, they thought they were untouchable at the time, and we hit them at a place where that, in my opinion, I personally feel like Sky was kind of like a thing to draw in certain people. Like, I feel like that was a way that they drew in people like Rain to, and you can fucking beep that out if you want to, but they drew in certain people to their group and through that base. And so I feel like us griefing that base is kind of like, oh, you can't use that to draw in, and like the allure of that base to bring in people in.
That's a pretty crazy conspiracy theory way of looking at it, but I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah, but it's like this super secret, huge 2B base, right?
Yeah.
And to me, like, I feel like that's kind of like the underlying. It's like, oh, we have this huge thing, and we're gonna use it as best we can to pull people in. And now that it's gone, like, what do they have? Right? They have lodges. Like, the base is pretty much, or the group is pretty much dead in the water recently. I mean, how often do you hear from the Masons anymore outside of like IHOP memes?
Yeah. Aside from that whole controversy, what were your kind of general thoughts on the SpawnMasons? Do you think they're a good group to have for 2B2T?
I feel like back then when Herm ran it, probably. I feel like Herm really got wronged along the way. I don't want to go too much into that because I'm sure Herm and Orson in their interviews really kind of with it, and anything I would say would probably diminish that. But what I will say is that I feel like Herm, based off of what he said, was wronged. I feel like Entropy should never have stepped up to that position. I feel like the group should have died with him. It was a Herm project. I mean, with all Herm projects, they all have expiration dates. They're not meant to go on and be like this big, like, secret society faction that like makes all these lodges and bases forever and never dies and keeps bringing in all these people. That was never Herm's original vision with it, and I feel like it's been sullied at this point. If they wanted their own big group, they should have made their own. I feel like now it's definitely more than ever. It just needs to die. They've done certain things that have made this community look very bad and have cast a bad light on not just their own group but everybody. It's contributed to a very long string of misbehavior. I don't think something like that should prosper.
If I was a SpawnMason member, like, been in there for a few years, watching this podcast right now, hearing you say that, and I was to kind of say, oh, well, I mean, sure, we've had our controversies, but I've gained a lot of fun from my time in the SpawnMasons. I've made some really amazing friends. It's such a cool community. I think this group should go on. Why do you think that player is incorrect?
I mean, good for them. That's their own experience. If they feel like they've made good connections through the group, they feel like they've made good friends and done positive things through SpawnMasons, I know that's, like, there's people like that in there. There's Mothra, there's I guess you could say Ranch too. He streams, like, he streams SkyMasons as well. Like, he got good content out of it, and I'm sure he made some genuine connections there. But I feel like there's more bad actors than good actors in that group, and the good actors are a bit oblivious to it, and they're willing to defend the bad actors because they don't really want to lose this group of people. They don't want to be out of this group of people because it's easy to just turn a blind eye to. The things that raise an issue in the community, right? It's easy for someone that's inside that group to turn a blind eye to it because it's not substantial. It's a thing where it's like, personally, myself, I find an issue with the fact that a bunch of people in their mid-20s met up with somebody who's 14, 15, can't even remember off the top of my head, I think it's 15, met up with a 15-year-old girl IRL and took her alone to a second location. I find a huge issue with that, regardless of the intent. Regardless of what actually happened, it's the
principle.
It's the principle of it. It's the intention to even plan something like that. It was planned. They invited her. There's screenshots of that. I'll send it to you if you want to put her. Inviting her to the thing, like her saying that she's gonna show up, like it's all there in the writing. They went into her bedroom when they were at her house. Like, You can say all the live long day, oh, there's nothing substantial that happened. Oh, there you don't know anything that happened. You weren't there. You weren't in the VC. You don't even know. Like, it doesn't fucking matter if we don't know. It, like, that happened. They admitted to that, and yeah, it's the action of wanting to do that I find very suspicious, and I just don't approve of that. And I think a lot of people in the community have stronger opinions than I do. I think my opinions of this are honestly light compared to a lot of what people are saying, and I don't condone what people are saying based off of this, but I definitely don't think it's like invalid to want to jump to that conclusion based off of what you've heard. Like, it's not great, and I think the people in the group, there is, because of what I said, because there is like their excuses for it are very much in the line of nothing bad happened because there's no proof of it, and you can't say anything bad happened, even though I'm not. People in the group that are good actors are using that as an excuse to stay in the group and say nothing's wrong. Very convoluted explanation.
Yeah, I get you. Say you're negative entropy, right?
Go ahead.
You've been running this group for a few years. You love the group. You want it to continue. What would you say negative entropy should do to stop SpawnMasons dying? Because 2B2C is going through kind of a shift right now with the groups, right? I think the old era of big groups like SpawnMasons dominating the server was very much a COVID thing. And I think now it's going back to the whole kind of 2018 when it was separated into multiple different factions. What do you think negative entropy should do to make the SpawnMasons successful into the future without dying amongst all these other big groups that have died over the past 2 years?
My personal opinion on that is I think he should pull a Baki and fucking rebrand. Drop the SpawnMasons moniker and come up with something original. Come up with an original idea, Entropy, that's not stolen from Hermetic Lock, and that has an actual unique gimmick and a unique name, and is separate from SpawnMasons, because I feel like the name of SpawnMasons has been sullied by the actions of few in your group, and it has made a horrible image for your group, horrible optics. Aside from the fact that this was Herm's project in the first place, that in and of itself is just bad optics, that you would commandeer that in the way that you did, and that Herm was removed in the way that he was. So personally, I think you should just make a new group, bro, and I think you should be original, and I think there's a lot of original ideas that can come from anarchy. A lot of these newer groups are proof of that, so I think you should spread your wings and fly, Entropy.
Okay, in response to that, I mean, I'm approaching this with the your opposite view here, just to kind of generate interesting conversation. Say the SpawnMasons are so much more than what Hermetic Lock created all those years ago. They've created their own thing. Sure, it's the same name, but they're a completely different thing, and they've done that. That's on them, right? They've created this, arguably one of the most successful groups in the server, controversies aside. Why should they let this group die because of one bad thing that happened, and why not?
What's different about it in your opinion? What's changed since Hermetic Lock's left, besides going and meeting up with miners?
Because I mean, the SpawnMasons that Hermetic Lock created was very much, as you said, a temporary thing designed to be a gimmick, right? Like he does now, like the Midnight Club, Guardsman. He's done it multiple times. Create weekly logics, that's their gimmick, but now it's actually a big community.
That's something that's changed. It definitely has become more long form. I would say change it some more then. I would say change it some more, because it's the same. They're still doing lodges. They're still blowing up the lodges. What else? That's really what SpawnMasons do, right? They have meetings and make lodges and the occasional mega base like Sky, but that kind of seems like a one-off now, because haven't really heard of anything else after that, right? As far as we know of. So I would say do something different. Do something that would surprise people. You've been doing the same shit that Hermetic Lock came up with for how many years now? It's been since like 2016, 2017, something like that. Do something original. Entropy, I know you have it in you. Personally, I recommend making an entirely new group, and then casting away the people that are giving SpawnMasons a bad name already before they infect your new one. If you choose that path, but I think trying to keep this dead horse alive, and keeping the same people in it that killed it in the first place, just not a good combination at all. That's my opinion on it.
Why do you think the SpawnMasons didn't react to the controversy by just instantly axing all the members involved? Because that's what 99% of groups and people would have done. If that happened in my group, that's what I would have done. Why don't you think they did that? Why is UFO still is in the Masons, right?
Interesting you say that. Yeah. Personally, my hypothesis on all of that is, like I said, the door is open for interpretation, right? The incident itself, you can't even really say that it was an incident because there's no hard proof that anything actually happened in the meetup. It's really just more of the meetup itself, the intent to go and meet up with a minor, regardless of what happened. It's something that sets a bad example for other people in the community, thinking that, oh, well, these people did that, so we're going to go do that. Even if their intentions are fine, you can't say that the next person who does it will have good intentions. And setting that example, especially being in such a prestigious group, it's irresponsible. And I feel like the Entropy kept these people around because the SpawnMasons has a history of watching out for each other, watching out for other brothers, regardless of what they do. And I feel like at a point, there should be some sort of realization that there's some things that you just can't cover for. You can't keep covering for this because it's outside of a block game. It's outside of just shitty Discord drama. This is a real life event that took place, and it's not registering with a lot of the leadership in that group because they were either involved in it or they just can't see outside of this narrow box that they put themselves in, which is being in the SpawnMasons and being in this community. That this is real shit. This is real shit that happened. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah. Last question revolving this whole SpawnMasons thing, at least for now. Do you see the SpawnMasons? Where do you see the SpawnMasons in 2 years' time? Do you see them making changes?
No, I don't see them making changes. They're not making changes now. They're kind of sweeping it under the rug. Literally just yesterday when we were in the Connect 4 VC talking about the Dawn Fuhrer griefs, Galvatron, albeit I don't even really think he's involved in Masons, but he's an Astral. He's Masons Light, right? He's a big Mason defender. He was in general chat talking about how he got mad at Force for bringing up the meetup again. He's like, oh, we're griefing Dawn Fuhrer right now. You don't have to bring that up. Why'd you have to bring that up? And it's they really want something like this, like all these Dawn Fuhrer griefs and controversy and whatever, to come along that will overshadow this whole meetup drama. They really want that to happen. And unfortunately, blowing up even 17 bases on a block game is as interesting and as maybe world record breaking as that is. Kudos. It's just not that serious compared to what they did. And it's never gonna. I don't think that there's ever going to be something as serious unless something worse than that happens. And God forbid. Yeah, God forbid. But there's it's hard to top that, right? It's hard to top that when it's all out there. And in my opinion, if I was the leader of that group, I would have a really, really tough time coming back from that without making some sort of public statement that corrects the situation in a successful way. And that's also a big task to do, right? It's hard. I mean, Deloaded proved that yesterday.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up.
It's hard to apologize for something and hope that the community doesn't continue to pile on. But yeah. I would say the difference is Entropy wasn't directly involved in that. He might have condoned it. He might have been okay with it at the time because he didn't think that it was going to turn into this. But there's wiggle room here to be hey, what these specific people did was bad. We're going to take actions against these people, and we're going to make an example and say, hey, if you do this in a group, in this community, we don't want you here. Regardless of what the intent was, it's fucking weird. It doesn't matter if it's 2B or not. It's just fucking weird to want to do that, to want to meet up with somebody that young and to spend time with them alone, to go into their bedroom. It's fucking weird. And that's what I would want them to do. That's what I would hope they would do in the next 2 years. But unfortunately, I don't see it heading that way based off of their current stance on it.
Do you think them not taking action is going to lead to their downfall? Do you see them being alive in 2 years?
Oh, yeah. People are never going to let this go. People are never going to let this go. People are going to hound them until it dies, right? And I think hopefully after Sky, like, shit's kind of simmering down, right? And maybe there's some inactivity happening in the group. Maybe this will kind of like wind things down. But if something big happens again, which, I mean, that's always likely, we'll be there. We'll find a way. We did it with Sky, we'll do it again. Don't care.
Yep, you're always going to be there hunting them down.
Oh yeah. And if it's not me, it'll be somebody else.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, cool. So, moving away from SpawnMasons, as previously said, other than SkyMasons, of course, what's been your most memorable experience since becoming a group leader? And you can talk a bit about your old Shenandoah stuff as well. But obviously, I'm mainly focusing on your 5C stuff, more recent stuff.
Right. So most memorable experience in the 2B community based around my 5C experiences. I would have to say that, I mean, obviously SkyMasons, fucking pinnacle.
Yeah.
Huge moment in 5C was getting all those Joey bases and his like putting all those together into a video. That's one of my favorite videos, just us griefing Joey. It's so simple, but he gets so mad, and so does all of his orbiters, because they expect us to have respect for their builds, and oh, you could have at least gotten us a world download before you griefed it. And it's like, no, like, you're not entitled to that. Like, this is how we have fun. That's how you have fun. If you can't protect your shit, then we get to have fun, right? If you protect your shit, then you get to have fun. And you just need to be accepting of that and not take it so personally. But lo and behold, every time we do it, they take it personally. So, I mean, it's to be expected. They built it. They put a lot of time into it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, right, if we didn't get a really cool reaction out of it. But, yeah, like, and that's the most fun to kind of combine together and edit for a video. Like, editing videos for 5C has been so much fun, because there's so much content there. There's so much fun to be had with the editing of all these videos. So,
because it's not just the placing TNT and watching blocks explode. It's the whole lore behind it, which makes it fun.
There's always a story behind it too. Yeah, and the reactions and seeing how people act when we do these sort of things.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about your whole beef with Joey Coconut. I know Orson talked about it in his podcast, but that was a while ago. I don't really remember what he said. So yeah, what kind of started your whole, feud, or I guess you call it enemy ship with Joey?
I think that's more of Orson's feud, but I will say I definitely don't appreciate the guy. I feel like he has changed drastically since I first met him. And I feel like he clings on to, like, being an older player as some sort of crutch for his relevancy in the community. When in actuality, I never really heard of him much back then. He was kind of a no-name. And he's really just kind of using his join date as a crutch, in my opinion. When he ran Short Bus Caliphate, he was a completely different guy, right? Like, he was a huge shit poster, like, he was so fun to VC with. I had so much fun being in VC with him. He's a really funny guy. And then right around the time he joined SpawnMasons, starting getting involved with Guardsmen, all that stuff, he took on more of a stance of being like this important leader and figurehead in the community because of the status that he thought he had, right? His ego got the better of him. And he cleaned up his act. He started to hide things about his history on the server. He started to see himself as morally superior to everybody around him, and that it just changed him drastically and made him not fun to be around, and it made griefing him a lot easier. It made it a lot easier to do because he just made it so much fun with the way he reacted to things. So no, it's not really like a personal vendetta against Joey. It's more of like, I don't know him anymore. Like, he's not the same Joey that I know. He's just another Coper and shitter from SpawnMason.
Yeah. What kind of because obviously you mentioned earlier about your like big video about griefing a bunch of them. Were those all Astral Order bases?
I'm sorry, what was that?
All the Joey Coconut bases you griefed in that video, were they all Astral Order bases?
Yes, they were all Astral Order bases.
Okay, so that had Astral kind of done something to, piss off 5C? Like, what made you want to inside them? Like, why did you even do that in the first place?
That was more of like, Orson's beef with Joey, right? Like it became more of a consistent, like, oh, anytime Joey's doing something, we're just gonna fuck with him because he's
Okay, yeah.
because of the shit he did in Guardsmen, right? Like trying to intercept the group and plant his own people in it and rise to the top and take over. And you kind of see through stuff like that, and it motivates you to want to screw with whatever they're doing, because when they're allowed to continue their private little SMP on 2B, basically is all it is. Their little SMP bases, when they're able to continue that, like that gives them relevancy, that gives them clout and whatever, if you let it grow far enough. And so, I mean, we took it upon ourselves to say, like, hey, like griefing on 2B, is more relevant than griefing a random private server, and let's focus a little bit more on 2B griefs. And I think right around the time we got back more into 2B was when we were griefing Joey and when we were getting his bases and kind of riding off that high into SkyMasons as well. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, in 5C, what makes? So I'll rephrase the question from the perspective of a group leader. What makes a successful 2B2T group?
Well, what makes a successful 2B group is being genuine friends with the people that you invite. Like making sure that, like, there's it's not like a professional like job workplace kind of relationship. Like you got to be friends with these people, and you've got to like really like be looking out for them the same way they're looking out for you. It's like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And if they're not getting something from the experience, they're going to find another experience where they can, and they're going to use you to do that, right? They're going to leak your stuff. They're going to dox you. They're going to expose you. Like they're going to do whatever it takes to get some sort of fulfillment out of their experience here. And if they want to get it from your group, you want to give them something that's worth staying around for. And then also, like with the smaller people that come in, like the lower ranked people, it's about like making sure that they feel involved in it as well, that they feel like they're on the ground floor, they're getting to do stuff as well. And like I said, like the private server griefing, that's a huge part of it too, because it's like, oh, here, like you want to do something, go grief this server, go grief this Twitch streamer, like, and they enjoy doing that. So it's a big motivator.
What's the future of 5C? Do you see yourself continuing to lead it, for years to come?
I think lead, it's a strong word. I like being the guy right behind the guy in charge, right? I don't like taking the shit. I just like doling it out. And I like that I'm 5C's caged animal that they can drop on anybody they want, and just let me go loose, because I mean I don't want to talk myself up too much, but when it comes to like arguing with people, right? Like I can keep shit going, and I can really like dig in and really call out specific errors in an argument. I'm very good at debating, so yeah, that's kind of where I want to go, like leadership wise with 5B. It's not 5B, 5C. In the future. Yeah, it's just kind of taking on more of that behind the curtain role.
Okay, and speaking of the future, do you see yourself sticking with 2B into the coming decade?
Absolutely. I would hope so, unless something like really really shitty happens, like a deloaded type thing.
What do you mean?
I was gonna say, if what happened to D is happened to me right now, I'd probably be gone. Like that would be it for me. Like rough. Real talk, like, because dude, like, what's even the point of playing anymore when everything's gone? Like, you just kind of have to start from scratch again, and I don't want to have to do that for like the third, fourth time. Like, I've already done that so many times.
What do you think is the biggest thing Deloaded did wrong in that whole controversy, which has led him to kind of annihilate his group's reputation?
He apologized. It's the biggest issue. Yeah, you gotta fucking own that shit. Like, if you're gonna disregard the opinions of several different high-ranking members in your group and just grief something that a lot of the community have worked on, regardless of what you believe, like, you just gotta own that shit after that. Like, you did it, you gotta fucking own it. And if you backtrack, you're just gonna alienate all the people that were writing for you when you did it. And it's gonna cause even more of an uproar, and now we're at the situation where we are now, where all these bases are gone as a result of that. So
yeah, I mean, going at sort of a counterpoint to what you
I was
just said
proud
would
for a
be.
little bit.
You're what, sorry?
I was proud for a little bit
Proud of what?
of his grief. I was proud of him. Like,
Oh.
stick it to him. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you joined 5C and haven't griefed anything, and right when you grief, you leave. Like, come on, man. Like,
get your priorities straight. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just about to say, obviously, Deloaded's vision for Donfior has always been this peaceful building group. He doesn't want to be, associated anything close to it as a griefing group. That would probably make him want to like neck himself. So like I feel like it would be hard not to own it in that regards, because if he were to own it and he would to kind of get the reputation of being more of a outlandish character, a bit more of a naughty boy, a bit of a griefer. That sounded really cringe. He'd kind of alienate a lot of his members, because the group he's curated for himself seems to be very the members in it are very similar to him in that they're very LARP focused, like building, griefing equals bad, no drama, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he acted on instinct, and I think it was a very bad call. If he didn't want to stick to it. So that's my opinion on it. And I can tell we're kind of wrapping this interview up, but I do want to let you know that
I've still got a few things to talk about.
Really? Okay, well, I do want to throw this in there before we get to these last few questions, is that I do have a clip to share from a new video project I'm working on at some point in this video. So
do you want me to paste it in now, or do you want me to put it at the end?
You can kind of segue into it in the end if you want, but I did some. I'm a big talk show enthusiast, right? I'm a big fan of different talk shows,
Okay.
Even shit like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, right? And so on Jimmy Fallon and shit like that, all these people they invite on, they come with some sort of like shill advertisement for whatever project they're working on. So I brought a little sneak peek for all these viewers out there.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll play that now, so you guys don't need to skip to the end. All right, here you go. Yeah, I'll just put that on screen. Just send it to me after we record it.
I got you. Well, I want your reaction too, so we'll wait till the end.
Oh shit! I'm reacting now. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I like to talk about it for a little bit too. So.
Okay, right. Send it over.
But we can wrap these up, and then I'll send it to you.
All right, sure. Okay, we'll do that at the end then. Okay, one sec. Just tap down the game.
Yeah, I'll play it in the call, Jax. I'll stream it, and then we can all watch it here and talk about it for a little bit, and then I'll send Dig the clip. It's like 2 minutes.
All right. So two more 2B2T topics I'd like to talk to, and then we'll just talk about some more general 2B2T related things. So you were one of the people that in I think it was summer of 2022 or maybe early 2022, you met up with Killer in New York and did an IRL stream, and someone stream sniped you. Can you talk about that whole thing? How was meeting 2B players IRL?
Absolutely. So that was kind of just like a run-of-the-mill type. It was kind of like a last split-second decision, right? Because Killit said he was coming through my state on this road trip, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. I've got nothing better to do. I'll do it. I'll go. And he had planned to meet all these people. He planned to meet Handyman and the Grand Lotus and Enigma. I think even Tavix. Yeah, we met up with Tavix too on our trip, and we weren't originally planning for that, but we did. And so it was this big cross-country road trip to meet all these different people, and it was crazy. The trip up there, we got stuck in this huge traffic. It's actually a really funny story. We got stuck in this huge traffic on the way to Kentucky. We were passing through Kentucky, and it was this really bad wreck. It wasn't moving at all. We were stuck in the same place for 2 hours, and Killit had taken a nap and everything. And I was like, dude, what are we gonna do? We don't have the gas to sit through this with the car on. And he was like, look, there's this little, there's this little side road right there. The side road where all the cops and ambulances go up on, the ambulatory road or whatever. And we were like, what I recommended it. I was like, what if we just turn around and go up that road, right? Just as a joke. And he was like,
just see what happens.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? I think we can. And I was like, wait, you're not being serious, are you? And he was like, there's actually a exit right up there that we could go up and get out of here. And I was like, holy shit. We're going to fucking run face first into a cop car. And he was like, fuck it, let's do it. So he whips the car around and starts going up the side. And keep in mind, to the right of us is just a steady stream of cars that hasn't moved. And to the left of us is this huge ditch that just goes down into darkness. We don't know how far it goes. So there's no way you could just pull off and turn around. You'd have to keep facing that direction. So we're going. And there's a huge line of trucks, like 18-wheelers, all along that road, blocking it. And so we're like, fuck, like we're turned around facing these cars that have probably stopped over to sleep for the night on the side of the road. And so Killit gets out of the car in a Discord call, right, with his gamer headset on, running down the side of the road, knocking on these trucks, telling them to move out of the way, like asking them to move so that we could get by.
Oh my god.
And he probably had to do this with about 3 different 18-wheelers. And luckily, like spaces had opened up for them to get back into the road. And so they pulled out and let us go through. Like we were just barely getting through, and we made it up through the exit. And there's this guy at the end of it, and he was like, "Man, you're lucky I'm not a state trooper. You guys would have been in serious trouble doing this." And we were like, "Yeah, thanks, man." And Killa turns to me and hands me like a couple dollar bills, and he's like, "Yeah, slip him this for me." And I was like, "What the fuck what are you doing?" Like just it's shit like that. Like we had a lot of fun experiences like that. Met a lot of really cool people. A lot of controversy came from that, right? Airbnb type stuff, real Schizo-Pixel type stuff.
Are the rumors true that you and Killit may have had sexual intercourse?
Not me and Killit, but I won't speak on any other residents of the Airbnb. I won't say Killit didn't hear anything, right? Obviously, or that would have been shared around. But yeah, that's the gist of it.
I mean, I would really highly recommend for anyone watching meeting up with 2B players when suitable IRL. Obviously, don't be going and copying the whole IHOP thing. But like, if you have friends you've met,
all consenting adults.
Yeah, make sure you're all of age.
I beg of you. But yeah, and that's actually
really cool.
Speaking of Pixelation, that's the first time I ever interacted with Pixelation. Was when he was like stalking us on our trip, basically, because he was terrified that we were gonna like come to his house or something. And,
oh,
like,
really?
he literally thought that Killit had like guns in his truck and like in his trunk and was like coming to like kill him.
Jesus Christ!
And he put us on kiwi farms and like all this shit. Like he was terrified, and this was my first impression of the guy. So yeah, it was a crazy trip all around. And then the meetup in NYC, yeah, we made a bunch of business cards, like 2B2T meetup cards that we signed, and we were going to give out to people in New York. We met Jaeger down there, who's like this old Imperium member, really cool guy. He kind of toured us around New York. And then part of our stream was like, okay, like if you see us on stream and you know where we are, you can come find us like on stream and we'll give you a card. So like we put our location out there on stream, and sure enough, fucking Maxi Taxi comes in out of nowhere and like on stream comes up to us and was like screaming. I think he was the only person that found us on stream, so he got a card. I think maybe a couple cards. And then at the end of the stream, we all just kind of went our separate ways and went back home. But there was another crazy experience that happened on this trip was actually during the New York stream, and you can probably go back and listen on Killit's channel. That there was this like car that passed by us when we were going into the subway station, and somebody had yelled 2B2T out of the car, like at us, and to this day we have no idea who that was.
Oh, that's funny.
But you can actually hear it on stream, and you could see all of us turn and be like, "Did that guy just say 2B2T?" Because we all heard it like at the same time.
Nice.
But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
Cool trip. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. And is that your only time you've kind of had IRL meetups?
Outside of the New York City trip, I have met up with Smeek several times. Just because, like I said, she lives so close, and we're such good friends. So I've met up with her on several occasions. And other than that, yeah, nothing really.
Okay.
Just that's only experiences for now.
Cool. Okay. So moving on to the your final 2B2T activity. Question, I suppose. What was the kind of whole like midnight club thing? Because obviously I don't really know much about that. All I know is I watched the fit video, and obviously Herm does his thing. I'm sure he did a good job with it. But can you kind of talk about how sort of like you got involved with that, how that all played out?
Yeah, Herm was kind of fiending to start another one of his little projects where it's a temporary thing that's unique and hasn't been done before, and it has a nice theme to it. And he also kind of was aware of the fact that for the holiday season people were going to be, not busy. They're not going to have their jobs to worry about. They're going to be at home looking for something to do in their off time. So he came up with the idea that during the month of December, kind of leading into January, he would start this group that would go camping in the woods on 2B. And that would be the whole gimmick, no items, no duped items. And we had like a custom texture pack and everything. Everybody would make their own cabin or tent or whatever. And it was really cool. There's a lot of stuff in the video and even mine that was not included. I wish I would have recorded more of the actual construction and some of the fun bits along the way. It was a really fun experience for everybody that was there. And like after the first meeting ceremony, we came up with a lot more ideas for it in terms of like people making up some sort of good or service in the base, I know Fit made his signature pumpkin pie farm, and I had this like community wagon with like donated items, and I think XCC2 made his he made some sort of baked potato. I think it was a baked potato stand or something, and he had like a zombie there that was named like giving out baked potatoes. It was really funny. So cute little stuff like that, and then the whole like ceremony aspect in and of itself, like we kind of saw ourselves, or Herm wanted it to be more of like a, where the SpawnMasons are like 2B's Freemasons, we are like 2B's Illuminati, like we're even deeper, right? Because we're going out to the woods. It's very inspired by the Bohemian Grove, the Bohemian Club.
Yeah.
That it's a real life secret society that meets in the woods and burns the statue and a lot of the stuff we did. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to play into that and have fun with it and do something interesting that everybody would enjoy in their off time. And of course Fit was thrilled about it because he had content for a video, and so it was kind of a win for everybody. Even if it wasn't, it kind of harkened back to what I was saying earlier of like, people just came here to build a base together and not really do much, right? Like that became something that was important again, like novel again, because nobody had really done that in a while.
Yeah, so the whole thing went smoothly. Then there wasn't any kind of drama or kind of people in there that caused trouble. It was all a good time.
It felt very natural, very much like just survival Minecraft again, like back to the roots of 2B2T. Like Herm said in his speech, he even said in his speech, it's like returning to the times before bases of old and all that stuff, and returning to a time when 2B was simpler and there wasn't all this content. And and burning it down in the end, and not doing it just for the content, doing it for us, and returning the land to what it was before, and all that LARP rigmarole.
Quite ironic how the whole thing was done for content.
Yeah, well, for Fit, yeah.
Well, as a byproduct, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it would be a cool video too, just to kind of summarize the experience.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Is that group still like ongoing, or was that a one-time thing?
It's ongoing in a sense of, we're probably going to do another one next year, during the holidays. I think it'd be fun, but it's not going to be like a group like SpawnMasons is. It's going to be like a maybe once a year type event.
Don't ruin it.
Yeah. You might do something completely new. Knowing him,
keep it special.
He doesn't like to. He doesn't like to become very monotonous in his projects.
Yeah, well, that's his whole thing, right? He stopped SpawnMasons when he was bored of it. He stopped Guardsmen when he was bored of it. Well,
He's
that's
a fan of experiences.
The man who brings together people in unique ways. Alright, so moving on to some questions. It's kind of generally about the server in your eyes. What would you say was kind of like your biggest like versus dislike about 2B2T? That could be in terms of the server itself, like the map or Housemaster, or things like the community and for such.
Well, biggest likes about 2B is that, unlike a lot of other multiplayer games out there, like, it's not built around this central story, right? There's not writers in a traditional sense. There's not like a preset path. You just kind of have what you're given, like the world around you, and people kind of construct their own story from there, and kind of build the lore themselves. And it allows people to kind of come into this space and become something big, regardless of when or where they started. So I really like that aspect, is that everybody can be important, depending on what they bring to the table and how much they're willing to do. Things that I dislike about the server is that it's made that specific experience a lot harder. A lot of the changes that have come along in the most recent years, as far as how the queue works, as far as not updating, and also just kind of how groups have started to go, where it's like there's not really many interesting groups on 2B like there was back then. I mean, it's just kind of the same.
That's
Older
all been done.
ones are like, the newer ones are kind of been done. They kind of been done before, and it's like the interest has kind of simmered down a bit. There's not like I dislike how much the server itself has changed more than the community, but the community definitely has changed. That's obvious.
Are you optimistic for the future of the server? Do you think 2BCT is going down a good path currently?
Oh wow, yeah. This is actually a question I ask everybody at the end of my interviews. So optimism about the future, like it's hard to be when you feel like you've been promised an update for so long and it's still not here, right? Like you feel like we're so close to something. Like on the test server, I mean, House tested the most recent version with so many players online, and it worked. Like there were no issues, right? And I can understand where, moving this map to that is going to be a big technical challenge. But at this point, like, why are you not, with the money you're making from PrioQ, hiring more people to get onto this, right? And like bringing more hands to the table, and getting on a roll with this, because 2B, I mean, it was justifiable a couple of years ago that we were still on 1.12, given how unstable the versions were. But now, like, so many servers that we never thought would update have updated. Even Constantium updated. So like, what's the holdup here?
What's the excuse?
Exactly. Like, it would just make him more money to update it. So why is it not being invested in? There's a lot of questions there that I feel like there's answers for, but we'll never know, because like transparency that was once present in the community, the bare minimum transparency, it's just not there anymore. There's just none. We really know nothing about who owns this server, or like how it's being run at the moment. It's being run on what seems like a professional level, but there's no professional statements about it. There's no community outreach whatsoever. It's very, very drained for a community to be like this. For there to be no like communication between the staff and the players.
Say the meme holds true and 2BGT never updates. Do you see that being a server that will still exist, 5-10 years into the future?
I mean, surely there's going to be people around for it, but I feel like one day it's just... I feel like the community is going to last longer than the server, honestly. I feel like that's just going to be what kind of outlasts the server more than anything.
Would you say the server being stuck on 1.12 permanently will ever cause for you to leave?
Not particularly. I mean, I feel like the only reason I would leave the server is just like again, if I got into like a D situation where like everything's gone and it's like, fuck, like, do I really want to go through the effort of like making new friends and starting over? Like, for me, 5C is like my 2B 2T retirement home. Like, I just kind of want to settle in here and like work with everybody and not really like cause any uproar, and hope that this Noah's Ark of a group, takes me to solid shores at some point.
Provides much more fun going into the future.
Yeah, just keeps me safe on the violent waters that is this server.
Yeah. Okay. So let put yourself in the shoes of a new player. Let's say you were joining 2B2T for the first ever time. Right now, you were 10 in queue or whatever. What advice would you give to new players joining today to help them maximize their enjoyment of the server?
My advice to a new player that would join today is find what makes you unique in real life and apply it to this game, right? Like figure out what people appreciate you for in your personality, and bring that to the table instead of being Imperium or Book Hood slave number 50,000, right? Like, nobody's gonna care about some guy that gets recruited into a shitty little spawn base group, and like their base gets spawned up in like a week, and it's just wash, rinse, repeat, and oh, you're in the occasional big Discord VC with Jared 2013 and you're on mute, like congrats, like you've really made it. But no, like you've got to to make a name for yourself. It's a lot more difficult than it used to be, but it's very possible. I mean, look at people like Orson's in this VC right now. Obviously, if you're viewing this, you can't see it, but like Orson's here right now. He joined in what, like 2021, 2020, something like that. And he was like a no name, but he stayed true to himself and he did what he found fun on the server, and he met people like Hermetic Lock, and they took a chance on him. And that's possible for anybody that joins now. It's possible for somebody to come along and find you interesting as a person, and see that you have promise and the capability to blend into the community, and you can get adopted into these big groups. It's not that hard, but you also need to be like an adult. I would appreciate that. Like, I think that's a huge thing that people care about with all these scandals that come up. Is like, please be like an adult, okay? Like, I don't want any like shitter kids in this group that I have to like babysit. Like, I'm too old for that. Orson's too old for that. Like, we want like competent adults who like hopefully would have some like programming skills. It's not a must, but like have skills in some sort of area that you bring to the
can
table.
Provide value.
Yeah, and you're fun to talk to, and not like a shitter or like 12.
Yeah, I mean, most of what you just said is very much giving advice for the player that wants to go down the route of making his name for themselves. Do you think making your name for yourselves and playing the whole 2B2T clout game is the best way is the best path to fucking hell, I can't speak. Is the best path to fulfillment on 2B2T?
Yeah, it's that British vernacular.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's 2 a.m.
Yeah, like it's definitely different, but I don't think you'll ever hear from the people that just get on to play, because they don't really last too long. The people that dip their toes in and just kind of walk around for a little bit, they're just they're observing the stuff that the people who stuck around and will stick around have done, and they typically don't play for very long. The people that want to make a name for their community, they want to make a name for themselves in this community, are the ones you're going to hear about the most, because that's really all that's coming to this server now, right? Like, people are coming from Fit, and they're like, wow, like I can be in a 100K or 1 million view video or whatever because I joined this server and placed a bunch of water and made a bunch of Jesus statues. And people are going to see how easy it is, and people that want clout in this game, that really enjoy the game, are going to want to play this server, and they'll make a name for themselves, because really the only way to get into a Fit video nowadays is to either know somebody he knows or know him personally, and like
do something crazy enough to grab his attention,
because he doesn't play anymore. He just kind of observes. So that's my.
He's just there, kind of. That picture of like there's a pipe and it's all gushing into one guy's mouth, and then it's just like dropping at the back into like a little skinny kid. That's basically FitMC. He's just kind of scooping up the little bits of clout to make his videos.
Oh yeah. He I honestly, I don't even know if I would say that. He's really just kind of coordinating with certain people all the time, because he knows they're doing stuff, and he knows that he can get just enough content out of these specific people without having to expand his reach to people who are unpredictable. And he himself doesn't really like when was the last time he did something like Fitlantis, where he just streamed a base and had fun at a base, like he just doesn't enjoy 2B, is what it seems like. He enjoys recording it and putting out other people's experiences and making money off of it. It's
very interesting to think about what 2B2T would be if or what effect FitMC has had on 2B2T, the way it's gone in the past 5 years, and how different the server would be without a YouTuber like FitMC. I don't know, it's just one of those things. Okay, so kind of next question, I guess, is kind of a bit more personal, but what's 2B2T given you?
Wow, okay, it's a very straightforward question. It has given me a lot of wasted time. I think that's I'm just gonna lead with that. I feel like maybe there's been a lot of stuff that I could have been doing, but I've chosen to play instead. I won't say it's entirely wasted, but it has been fun. You know, it's a fun hobby as long as you keep it a hobby.
Yeah.
And I think it's given me a lot of skills, social skills. Surprisingly, you know, with the
Very
interviews.
common answer. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, I would imagine. I don't know why that would be a common answer. That's interesting. Probably wouldn't get social skills from 2B because, you know, they come here because they're antisocial. But, you know, interviewing people specifically is where I get my social skills from, communication skills. It's definitely benefited me in certain jobs that I've taken.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that question to basically every single guest, and probably 90% of them have all mentioned social skills as one of the biggest things they've taken.
I mean, you interview a lot of like group leaders and stuff like that, so that makes sense. But yeah, communication's a big one, and it's also given me just lifelong friends, like true friends, like Orson and Smeek, and shit. You know, even Kill It. I'll say Kill It too. Kill It doesn't like me a lot right now, but I had a fun time on the road trip with him in person. You know, he might not like me on Discord, but I'm friends with him in person, so I'm friends with that Kill It, that version of Kill It. So
that Kill It, right? So weighing up all the friends you've made and also the time you've wasted, would you say 2BGT has had an overall positive or negative impact on your IRL life?
I think it's had a net positive. I really do. I think that these experiences and these people, like, I really wouldn't want it any other way. And maybe that's just because I've lived it, you know, and I don't really know what it would have been like without it. But
yeah,
it really would suck to not know people like Orson and Smeek and all the people that I'm surrounded by. And it's also like, you know, like I said, the hobby, like the drama that comes from it, and like it's a fun little, like,
it's a good hobby.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to put energy into, and a fun thing to get better at editing and talking to people with. Like, it's a good exercise for all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, before we go on to the Patreon questions, you said there was a video you'd like me to react to on the cast, so I'll be happy to do that if you can send
Absolutely.
that over.
Well, yeah, a little bit of context before we play this video for the three other people in the call right now. So this is coming from an upcoming series that I'm doing for my channel. It's called Simpgate. So you might have heard of it, Dig. I don't know if I mentioned it in VCD.
Simpgate? I don't think so.
It's going to be a crazy 3-part mystery revolving some big leaders in the community. That's all I want to say. But like,
oh shit, okay.
It's going to be on par with, I would say, the Jared Hall trial. I feel like that's
that's big. That's big. Okay.
That's the energy that it surpasses. Honestly, I would say it surpasses that. So I'm going to go ahead and stream this clip for you guys. And I chose, this is actually from part 2 of the mystery, right? Part 2, and I chose this one specifically because actually you're mentioned in it.
Okay.
This is one of the only parts where
I don't know if I should be like scared or excited.
This is well, you'll see in a little bit, but this is the only part of it where BSB is kind of like a big part of the narrative, right?
Okay,
so
all right, let's go.
This clip is from a private call from 2021.
In April, we were informed, not by Orson first, but by someone else, that people were sending very questionable images to be generated, right? And these people were accounts from Solar and Hammer.
Yeah.
So we've known for a while that, you know, like BSB, which also no one is talking about, just as a side note, that Solar and Hammer, who were in BSB for very long, they were like, you know, doing these kind of things where they were like laughing as like pedophiles and shit, and then later on they would expose themselves by sending these images. That was a thing in BSB for a very, very long time, and a lot of people left back then. A lot of the OG members, and I know that because BSB was my first group. Like, that's, you know, where I started. So the thing is, though, so they were sending these pictures of Quack, right? Like, they were getting these pictures while being of Quack, that is the player Quack.
She's the 14-year-old girl that Ghost was
and
nudes of.
And they got her in a very awkward and nudity-like position in BC. so where she turned on her cam in BSB. So that's what Harman saw. So they screenshotted that, and then this is how this picture was created, right?
Was Dig involved with this?
I don't want to have other people involved here, right? But sure, you can argue here and say, sure, Dig and Iams, they should have taken action. Like, Iams was endorsing it, everyone knows that, but yeah, no one's talking about that shit. And Dig wasn't doing jack shit. Like, people ask him 1 billion times he wasn't doing jack shit.
There's a culture of silence when these things happen.
All right,
interesting.
Guys, that was the clip. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really great segue into talking about my interview on your channel, because I'm sure that's gonna be something we talk about in great detail, which I'm excited for. Not to make it into too much of a trivial sort of like reality TV type shit, but that's definitely something that I'd like to address. So we're going to be recording that interview in probably the next few days, and hopefully it should be up within a week of this one. That would be nice. You actually going off of my kind of editing pace, they'll probably come up at about the same time. So yeah, that will be interesting. Okay, Patreon questions. Not too many this time, but we got two from Jack the Ripper. So the first one being Bezopasan. Do you like Bussy?
Yes, I am a Bussy enthusiast.
Can you explain why you like Bussy?
It's a good question. Because I'm a faggot, that's why. Actually, I'll rephrase that in a way that's YouTube friendly. Because I'm a homosexual male.
Interesting. That's very deep. Okay. Next one from Jack the Ripper, saying, what was your favorite pre-2016 moment?
Favorite pre-2016 moment has got to be Sato. I don't know if it's his third or fourth incursion, but whichever incursion I was at Spawn for Sato 86, got to be my favorite pre-2016 moment. Was being at Spawn, getting chased by those fuckers. It was like, it was an insane thing that, like, you know, you were glad you were there to experience it. So,
was that during the whole like Wrath Outpost third incursion thing?
I think so.
Were you actually like involved in the third incursion?
Oh no, but I got chased a lot.
Okay.
I was on the KOS list.
Damn. Okay, and the last one coming from a Calico is, are we friends?
Of course we are, Calico. Yeah, I mean, we're best friends. We're homies.
Homosexuals.
And that too, yeah.
Alright, well, Bezo, this is a fucking great interview. It was really cool to hear about like your perspective on things and your history and stuff. I've definitely learnt a lot, which is very epic. And of course, we have the the turntables, the flip side of this interview, where we're kind of doing interview 6-9 here, which will be an interesting thing to do, 100%. But yeah, I think that's it from me today. Few things about the channel. Obviously, hasn't been a podcast in a while. Mostly because I've kind of just been slacking with the kind of trying to set one up and stuff. I've been distracted by other things. I'm definitely going to try. This channel is definitely going to turn into what my old channel was, and the DigCast is just going to become a separate series on this channel rather than being like the whole dedicated thing. I should have a video out in the next week, not interview related, which should be fun. And yeah, I think that's all from me. Also going to be streaming again. I've been quite busy, but I should be able to do the weekly streams as I used to. And yeah, that's all from me. Bezo, any closing remarks?
Yeah, keep making interviews, you lazy piece of shit, because I've run out of people to talk to, and somebody's going to do it.
Well, bro, we have the same problem, it seems like.
Yeah.
I've got some pretty...
I'm a bit of a shitter now, so it's a bit harder.
I've got some cool ones lined up, so you guys should be excited for that. But yeah, okay, that's all from me. Bezo, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, and I'll see you in the other interview.
Later.
Alright, take care, boys.